You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions.
Weekly Trek, Episode 6, 4th week of May, 2018.
This is Starfleet Breaking News. Welcome to Weekly Trek. This is the nightly news, the Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer and Anderson Cooper 360 Live. All in one, only it's all Star Trek. My name is William Conlin. I am co-host of Reading Trek podcast, and I am joined today by Polytrek's co-host, Shashank Avvaru. Shashank, how are you today?
I am great. I love discussing breaking news, but the biggest breaking news is something that is made of plastic, so that makes me all the more excited. I'm very happy to be here.
Nice. So what this podcast is this is a weekly Star Trek news podcast featuring various hosts from the Tricorder Transmission Networks. We're going to go over some of the most interesting items of news related to the Star Trek universe. And as Shashank just said, we have some Star Trek toy news. Shashank, take it away.
One of my favorite things that I did at STLV last year was attending the Todd McFarlane panel, which very few people attended, mainly because there wasn't a whole lot of publicity to it. Essentially, he announced that he will be taking over as one of the leading developers of all toys and merchandise that might be plastic or prop related to Star Trek Discovery, among the other series. And we just got news that the Star Trek phaser from Star Trek Discovery is essentially the pre-orders were cancelled. And the problem was there were a few issues. This article is on trekmovie.com. You can go and read it. But there were a bunch of issues that got together, and recently at Phoenix City Comic Con, Todd McFarlane was asked what was going on with that phaser, but he actually spun the answer in a very positive way, saying, well, there have been a few issues, but this won't be the last time you'll hear of us with the Star Trek Discovery phaser. Just because the pre-orders were cancelled and we essentially won't be doing them for now doesn't mean it's not something that wouldn't happen in the future. And he himself is very hopeful that we'll see it. What do you think about it?
Well, I'm hopeful that it will come about because I was really blown away by the quality of them. And at that $35 price point, it really beats the $500 price point that Anovos is putting out there. So I'm really hopeful that he does come around and they figure out a way to make it possible for the fans.
And if you guys are interested, on the trekmovie.com site, or you can just Amazon search McFarlane Star Trek, and you can see two awesome Picard and Kirk action figures that are also ready for pre-order. So even though we might not be getting the Star Trek Discovery phaser, there is still the opportunity to snag up some awesome, very highly detailed Picard and Kirk. I'm already in line for pre-ordering those because I'm 26 and single, and who needs a social life? What do we have next on our schedule?
Well, moving from some toy news to some very serious news, as many of us know about 6 months ago, our beloved George Takei was accused of drugging and groping a model named Scott Brunton. This was coming at the height of all the accusations during the Harvey Weinstein scandal. A lot of people were very concerned about that because it didn't seem like it matched up. And sure enough, now Mr. Brunton has stepped back his statements. He's saying that he doesn't remember key moments. He's actually contradicted a lot of the things that he said during the initial interview. So it's basically been debunked at this point, and Mr. Takei has been vindicated, and showing the great level of grace that we all know that he has. He even put out a tweet just the other day saying that he does not bear any ill will and wishes him peace. So very, very positive news from what had been a very disturbing article several months ago.
We discussed that a little bit on Polytrex, Barry and I, and we remember that weird radio silence that George Takei had to go to simply because of people pointing fingers at him, and his Twitter had to go off for a while. You know how he's very active politically, and he makes a lot of statements that are very relevant and very powerful given the current political climate. So when he had to go off Twitter and just take a few days. It just seemed weird, the whole situation. And while people were open to listening to whoever the accuser was, because you always have to give that person the platform that they deserve. I am glad this situation resolved itself without any kind of ugliness bearing out. And this, if anything, we just are reaffirmed in the big heart of George Takei and how good of a person he is with this news,
Yeah, truly. I'm excited to see this because I hope it opens it up for him to attend conventions again. I know he kind of backed off for a while, and this shows the danger of false accusations in this era of social media. People need to really be careful, and I really also blame the source for it as well. I'm not sure who put the article out initially, but when you look at like what people like Ronan Farrow are doing, they are so watertight in their sources. They don't come out against somebody unless they really have it locked in. I think whatever put it out just to get the publicity, and they didn't do a very good job about it.
It's definitely something that did seem off, and it did seem a little heartbreaking when we heard it, but somewhere inside I think we all knew, simply because of the, like you pointed out, the illegitimacy of the source and a few other factors that were combined. We knew this was going to resolve. So I'm glad it's all done and over with, and now we can move on to talking about video games. You excited to hear some Lita and Chase Masterson news there, Will?
Absolutely. I love Chase. So what do you have for us?
So there is an interview on Trekco.com where we recently found out that as part of the new Star Trek Online expansion, Lita is back, and Chase Masterson is essentially, she has done the animation work, she has done the voice work, she's essentially taken on that role and added a new layer to the beautiful character of Lita that we have come to know and love. And the interview is very detailed. It goes into a few interesting, very relevant layers. There is an anti-bullying message that she was very particular about while getting through to what she was doing with the character. But my favorite thing in this interview is how the interviewer asks her, is there any chance we'll see Mirror Lita? And that was something that always intrigued me. What did you think of this?
Yeah, I'm interested for it. I honestly don't have Star Trek Online because I'm on a Mac, and unfortunately their platform failed to port over properly, so they pulled it.
How dare you?
I had it on the PS4, but I didn't like the interface. So one of my goals for this year is to get a gaming PC so that I can basically just play Star Trek Online on it. So I am excited to see that all these wonderful additions coming in, so it'll still be fresh when I do finally get to it. I've heard that there are several other actors who have put their voices into this expansion. I believe J.G. Hertzler and Max Grodenchik are all in there, and it's coming out in just a week and a half. So people have something to look forward to in the initial days to come.
Another interesting topic that's discussed on this interview that's not entirely video game related is her anti-bullying charity that she also talked about at Star Trek Las Vegas last year, is the Pop Culture Hero Coalition. And I won't tell you guys a whole lot about it, but it's a very cool anti-bullying initiative, and you can see the work that it's doing, and there is a video in here that's embedded that shows how it was featured on CBS News, I believe. It's just a fascinating interview. I highly recommend everybody read it.
Yeah, and she's got people, she's got like William Shatner's involved in it. She's got all the Deep Space Nine people involved, and people outside of Star Trek. I know John Barrowman is a big supporter of it as well. So for you Doctor Who fans out there, it really crosses the pop culture spectrum. And I strongly suggest that people support the charity because it's really great what they're doing.
Absolutely.
On a side tangent, since we're talking about video games, I believe it was covered in a previous episode of Weekly Trek, but what I can speak to, because I have a PlayStation VR, I downloaded and spent some time the other day on the bridge of the TNG Enterprise in Star Trek Bridge Crew VR, which is a really stunning update to the original series video game that came out last year. You can now do missions on the TNG bridge, and it's really a lot of fun.
Every time I sit down to play anything that shows me the bridge and allows me to have an in-depth experience, my head, because it's so weird and demented, it immediately goes to that Black Mirror episode with the pilot of the latest season, where it's essentially an observation of a Trekkie, a very crazy psychopathic Trekkie. So that's where my head goes. But it's nice to know that everybody who's normal is also enjoying and loving that VR experience.
Yeah, it's great. So from VR to real life, we may have a Star Trek theme park in the works. Universal Studios Orlando, there are some rumors floating about that to compete with the upcoming Star Wars Galaxy Edge that's opening at Disney World, Orlando may be building a Star Trek land. So there's not a lot of details yet, and it's very much a rumor, but this kind of stuff comes out there, and with the absence of Star Trek: The Experience in Las Vegas for the past decade, I think it's a fine time that we have a physical Star Trek presence. How do you feel about that, Shashank?
So, I'm a calm, collected person, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've heard this entire year. Nothing will ever get better for me until I actually step foot into that and I will realize my life is complete now. If an asteroid comes towards Earth and we blast away, at least I'll have lived to experience Star Trek Land. This is like Disneyland for me, except there'll be more philosophy and politics and a whole lot of tea Earl Grey hot everywhere. I am so excited for this. I have already in my head started imagining what kinds of rides I want and how angry I will be when those entirely unreasonable rides will not be there. Is there anything specific that you'd like to see at Star Trek Land?
Oh, it's hard for me to say because I felt like I've seen the other side of the rainbow. I grew up going to Star Trek: The Experience in Las Vegas. In its early days, you had to pay for single rides, but after a couple of years, it was you pay once and you can go as many times as you want in a single day. So I would literally go on the ride over and over and over again. There were times I think I went 15, 20 times a day. So I grew up at Star Trek: The Experience. I would, if they got something even just just as good as that was, I would be happy. I think that was really the high watermark of theme park experiences for me growing up because it was so immersive and it was so well created and so well executed. So, just something along the same lines as that. And then the atmosphere. I think to have that kind of a public space year round, I feel like, people who feel that, that like con longing in the middle of the year between Star Trek Las Vegas. Imagine if we all just went to Florida and got to spend a few days there and it felt like you were at the con when the con was still 6 months away.
And I don't say this often, but kudos to Universal Studios for recognizing the power of this franchise. They have a Star Wars theme park, they have a Disney theme park. They're doing everything with their franchises. It's just about time that they recognize that there is so much gold waiting to be made in our infinitely deep and fascinating franchise. But as far as the rides that I would love to see there, if there isn't a Kobayashi Maru, that's from that Prime timeline and the Kelvin timeline Kobayashi Maru, I'll be so mad. I will still go there and spend all the savings I have, but I will be mad.
Could you imagine actually a Kobayashi Maru ride? Because I think that would be the only ride in the world where you don't succeed.
But you learn a lesson, right? I think that's the point of the Kobayashi Maru, and the fact that you can expose young kids to, hey guys, see, this is and imagine the unique perspective, like with the Kobayashi Maru, the number of rides that we could bring with the Star Trek world is you take them to a ride where they eventually, do not succeed, but they learn that that's part of life. There is so much that you can learn from failure, and that's where I bring in like my Disneyland with philosophy idea. And please, Universal, if you're listening, hire me so I can come work for you and give you ideas and just sleep on the land and watch it grow from its roots.
Well, I support you working for them 110%, but if you do work on that and you create a Kobayashi Maru ride, then you have to put an extremely intricate Easter egg in it that allows one person who's smart enough to cheat and win the ride.
And that person, no matter what their name, has to be James Tiberius Kirk.
Exactly.
They have to change their name legally.
They get the Kirk
Speaking
award
of Kobayashi Maru, absolutely. Speaking of Kobayashi Maru, there is a really cool interview on The Late Show that we recently heard about with one of the makers of the Kelvin timeline Kobayashi Maru, Spock, and the actor playing Spock, our beloved Zachary Quinto, was on the show promoting his Broadway revival of The Boys in the Band, which apparently he's also doing with Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory. It's a very important, relevant, LGBT-heavy musical / play, and there is a lot of talk about it. But he came over and just dropped like it's obvious and wouldn't shatter the Star Trek nerd airwaves. He just said, "Oh yeah, there is going to be Star Trek 4. yes, S.J. Clarkson is working on it right now, and he's pretty excited to work with her. What did you think of all this after you picked up your jaw once it fell on the floor?
Well, I loved the interview. I'm a big fan of Boys in the Band. It was a seminal 1970s play, and the fact that they're bringing it back. The interesting thing about it, when it came out in the 70s, it actually it wasn't even politically correct enough that they could hire LGBT actors to be in it. So you had a lot of straight actors playing LGBT characters. This production is actually all LGBT, so I really commend them for what they're doing with that. Now, the Star Trek news that he dropped, I was thrilled by it. I think S.J. Clarkson is an incredible choice to be the first female helmer of a Star Trek film. I think she's going to do wonders with it. But then he also dropped that after that, they believe that Star Trek V will be the Quentin Tarantino film. So we've really got a lot to look forward to in the Star Trek cinematic universe.
Even Star Trek V, our beloved Uhura just doesn't get up and hold a phaser to someone's head and quote a line from the Starfleet Charter like Pulp Fiction Samuel L. Jackson. I'm going to be so pissed. Like, I want that to happen. Ezekiel 21:23. That needs to happen.
Say live long and prosper, mother.
Absolutely. I'm also excited that we finally have a woman director on board. It's hard to believe that we've had close to 20 movies or over 20 for my count. Probably my count is off somewhere, but it's sad that we've had so many, but a woman's never been given a chance. But I'm glad that this has finally come around and it's now happening with such an important. I'm sure Star Trek 4 will be an amazing movie. Really, none of the Kelvin timeline movies have been bad, but I think it'll be that much better because this time we get a woman's perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for those of you looking to take a trip not to Florida if the Star Trek theme park opens, you might want to head up to rural New York State because the Star Trek Original Series set tour in Ticonderoga, New York is about to get a whole lot bigger. On the heels of their very exciting event last month with William Shatner, they have announced that they are going to expand into the building next door and they are going to build a next generation set as well as start a film academy for fans who want to make Star Trek fan films. So very exciting news coming out of upstate New York. James Cowley, who is the founder of it, did a great interview on trekmovie.com, and I'm really excited about this. I was willing to go to New York for this before they announced this, but now that they've got TNG, I'm ready to get on a plane as soon as that opens. How do you feel about that?
I hear New York is this really small state that doesn't have a whole lot going on for it. So, let's throw them some money. Just go and visit them and get some tourism. I'm kidding. Yeah, it's not like we needed any more reasons to go to New York. But the fact that they have finally figured out something that is so obvious, and this is, I think, in conjunction with the Star Trek Land that's coming. I don't think it's very coincidental that all of this news is coming out to us right now. But the fact that they want to make it all the more accessible, like really, before this, where did you have this stuff? Probably at a con, probably just STLV or some of the specific Star Trek conventions where you'd probably see a Star Trek original series bridge, or you would probably see one of the rooms from the next generation. But the fact that they're taking it to the next level with this not only makes me more excited, it makes me happy that they're bringing this experience to us now, and they're finally recognized again that there are people out there who just will spend the money and will give you their time if you really can make it as accessible as some of the other popular franchises like Star Wars.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're actually also going to be holding their own convention up there just a couple of weeks after STLV. August 24th through 26th, they're going to have Trek Conderoga. So, and their headliner for that is going to be Mr. Carl Urban. So a lot of exciting news coming out of that place.
Well, speaking of expansions, I have some more exciting news. CBS is displaying off their merchandises at the 2018 Licensing Expo, and Discovery was a headliner. CBS Consumer Products made a massive display. They essentially set up an Oscar-style campaign where they got a lot of people together. They got a lot of eyes on the 2018 Licensing Expo, and you could see everything in Discovery, from some of the props to some of the posters that they had made to all the cool merchandise that we can expect over the next year. There has been a little bit of a dearth for me personally I have not seen as much Star Trek Discovery merchandise as I'd like to, but the fact that there is a 2018 licensing expo in which they decided, hey, let's make Discovery the frontier display. Let's make it the ultimate one that everybody should come and see. That fills me with hope, and I'm excited to spend my next paycheck on this awesome disco T-shirt that I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, isn't that great? Do you know what one of my favorite things that I saw in all those photos was? The Discovery official fortune cookies.
I see it.
I'm excited to see what they say in there because I'd love to just open one of them up and you just see, I don't give a damn.
And if I'm not wrong, right next to them, are those the fan set spins?
Those are fan sets. I saw a post on Fanset's Facebook page, maybe their Twitter, one of their social media pages, that they were really thrilled and honored to be featured in the licensing expo because they're extremely proud of the Discovery materials that they've put out. I'm a huge fan of them as well. I've got several of them already on my backpack that I'll be walking around STLV with. So yeah, it's really exciting to see that all on there. My question for you, Shashank, is how many of those $9,000 USS Discoveries from Anovos did you pre-order? 2 or 3?
What are you talking about? I ordered 14 of them.
Oh,
I have
okay.
already maxed out my 5th credit card.
All right, so you're going to be sending me at least one, right?
That depends on if you can get me this sweet, underrated, beautiful poster of the 25th anniversary of DS9 that they showed at the 2018 licensing expo.
Yeah, that's
if you get
beautiful.
me that, we'll start talking.
Nice, nice. Well, you know what's great? For $9,000, those actually included a working Spore drive.
What? You're messing with me?
Yeah, I'm messing with you.
Damn it! I finally thought they discovered it, and oh, no pun intended.
Well, for $9,000, it better.
Yeah, exactly. If you're making me pay that amount, right, at least give me that Spore drive so I can go fight some Klingons.
Exactly. Well, speaking of fighting Klingons, let's talk about the engineer from the USS Hiawatha. We have an additional interview on TrekMovie.com with actor Tig Notaro. She is talking about her upcoming reoccurring role in Season 2 of Discovery. We still don't know a lot about her, but she said that she was offered the role because she's known Alex Kurtzman for a long time. She's very excited to take it. She's hoping that she brings some good humor to the role, and she's hoping that the fans will be accepting of her. Now, I've seen some very positive reactions to it. I've seen some somewhat negative reactions to it. I think she deserves a chance to have her part in this universe. I'm really excited because I think she's really talented. So let's give her a chance, folks. What do you think, Shashank?
So I might have an opinion that might be unpopular, and I'm okay with being in the minority on this. Her character that she's playing is Dennis Reno, and she's the chief engineer, as you mentioned. And I have not had enough evidence, especially from the prime timeline shows that we've seen so far, that comedy roles actually work out in the best light for the people that play them. Like in the Next Generation, there are so many jokes that you can feel the earnestness with which they are presenting those jokes, but it's just a joke that you sit through to get to the actual meat of the plot and the stuff that you're there for. Now, the Kelvin timeline has been doing great with comedy, and there are some hilarious moments in Star Trek Discovery also. So I am willing to give them a chance, but it does concern me a little bit that she says, hey, this role was given to me, partly because I'm funny. And that irks me a little, but not to the point where I won't watch the season. I just will be cautiously optimistic because Trek history has taught me that God does not actually need a starship.
See the evidence, the primary evidence that I have that I'm confident on, especially with the mix of comedy, is like Rainn Wilson. Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad is one of my favorite episodes of Season 1 of Discovery. I've watched it more times than any other episode. And the simple fact that I can still laugh at an episode where the character kills the entire crew of the ship 150 times shows me that I think there's a place for proper comedy in there. And I don't think she's like, she's not a... I don't even know. I don't want to disparage some comedic actor, but she's not a typical comedian. She's a very, she's a very unique sense of comedy. So I'm just curious to see what she brings to this.
Speaking of things that fill us with joy and give our life purpose and meaning, The Toys That Made Us, a Netflix documentary series about popular toy franchises in the 20th century, just debuted their new season, and the pilot of that new season is the Star Trek franchise. And there is a wonderful interview from one of the producers on TrekMovie.com that dropped recently, and he talks about some of the just some of the ups and downs and some of the highs and lows of the franchise. And I'm sure any Trek fan who can be objective knows that the toys weren't always the greatest part of our franchise, but it's been an interesting journey. I have seen this episode. I completely am in love with it, and I cannot wait to go back and watch it again. What did you think of the interview?
It made me want to see it even more. As we talked about right before we recorded, I haven't had a chance to watch this yet. I'll probably be getting to it this week. And it kind of comes full circle from where we started today's show because they've got Todd McFarlane in there. So you're talking about generations worth of Trek toys, and this was really exciting for me because one of my earliest Star Trek memories actually is a Trek toy. I remember having I remember watching TNG during its entire run, but one of my first favorite toys ever was a battle damaged Enterprise D that was one of the tie-in toys to Star Trek Generations, and you could fly it around your house, and there was a little button at the bottom near the deflector dish, and you would press the button, and pieces of the ship would like blow off, and you'd hear phaser fire, and it was just the coolest toy in the world. So for me, I have a great connection to classic Trek toys, and I'm really excited to see this.
For a second there, I was worried. I thought you were going to say your first Trek toy was the parachuting Kirk. And believe it or not, that's featured on the episode at one particularly low point of the franchise where Roddenberry had sold off the toy rights to a bunch of companies. One of the companies made a parachuting Kirk and Spock, which is essentially Kirk and Spock in their Enterprise outfits, but they have a parachute attached to them and you can just throw them in the air and they come back down. The funny thing about that is the toy was made over 35 years ago, and time has come back around to where in the Kelvin timeline, in the first Star Trek movie, Kirk actually does use a parachute when he's trying to disable the Doomsday device with the the red matter device.
And of course, the alternate opening for Star Trek Generations that was never used but is featured in the special features on the DVD and Blu-rays is William Shatner orbital skydiving as one of his retirement hobbies. So yeah, there's an interesting history of Kirk and parachuting. It's something that toy foreshadowed that, but not in a very good way.
I highly recommend everybody just go watch the toys they made us. They cover a lot of wonderful 80s franchises, Transformers, Star Wars, He-Man, and my favorite episode so far is the Star Trek franchise. And as Will mentioned, Todd McFarlane is on it, but there are also a very interesting set of surprises that you guys should be looking forward to. And before we get out of here, we will take a break from the real world big franchise news to just share some personal news from the circles of the tricorder transmissions. But before we get to that, I had a very delicious burrito yesterday. That's my update for this week. What about you, Will?
My update is that I am currently, right this very minute, drinking tea Earl Grey hot. And you may think I'm joking, but I'm not.
No, he's not.
So in Star Trek Las Vegas news, Creation has announced several more guests since our last show. We're excited to have Ensign Connor Danby from Discovery, Sam Bartholomeo's coming back this year. He's coming back as a proper guest this year. Last year, I believe he was announced last minute, so they didn't do any autographs or photo ops. This time you will have your chance to have a moment with him. Returning to the convention, we have Steve Rankin and Mark Alimo. Steve was a guest star on TNG, and Mark Alimo, of course, was the great villain Gul Dukat. I'm so excited to see him again this year. We have Eddie Paskey and Catherine Hicks. Catherine Hicks, of course, is our dear doctor from Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. They are your damn whales. And then that puts us at number 99, so we're waiting on the big 100, which is always a big announcement, so we're hoping that announcement will come soon. I have my fingers crossed for a certain Sonequa Martin Green. I'm hoping she'll be our big announcement, but we shall see. How do these guests make you feel?
I'm pretty excited to again run into Mark Alamo somewhere and just make weird Gul Dukat puns to a point where he'll just shove me away. So that's the prospect of doing that again makes me excited. But I do want to speculate with you a little more on the 100th mystery guest. I don't think it'll be Sonequa Martin Green simply because that feels too obvious to me. I'm hoping they'll throw us a curveball and give us someone from the Kelvin timeline. Last year we had Carl Urban, which was a fun, interesting experience, and he did break some news there at that point. But I would like to see hopefully Chris Pine or Zachary Quinto or one of the popular Kelvin timeline actors, simply because Star Trek 4 is circling around again and we have a few Star Trek Discovery actors that are coming anyway. And I'm sure at some point they'll announce Nico Martin, but for this 100th mystery guest, I wanted desperately to be someone from the Kelvin timeline. Is that too selfish of me?
No, I'm a huge Kelvin fan myself, and I think it's well within the realm of reason that we could see Zachary Quinto, even Simon Pegg, and John Cho. They've all been to creation events in the past, so they're all well within the cards.
Speaking of fun that you can have at STLV, even if it isn't one of those awesome Kelvin timeline actors, don't worry, we have a place for you to come to. Isn't that right, Will?
Absolutely. Yeah, I am really excited to talk about this. We made our big announcement about it on the Tricorder Transmissions Facebook page the other day. The Tricorder Transmissions is putting together a special party at STLV. It's going to be the Saturday night of the convention. It's going to start just before the end of the concert, so if you're attending the big Pops concert, then you can head right on over afterwards. Our exact location is to be announced, but it will be on the property of the Rio, so you don't have to go anywhere. We're creating what's called the Tricorder Transmissions Night of Diversity. It's going to be a night for LGBT and allies, so everybody is welcome there. It's going to be a big fun party. We're going to have one of our good friends and supporters and an STLV attendee himself, Eric Erickson, is going to be our DJ. We're all going to be speaking about the podcasts. We're going to have prizes. We're going to do best cosplay. We're going to do voting on best podcasts. We're going to just have a lot of fun, and it's going to be a great safe space for fans of all shapes and sizes to come in and just enjoy themselves. So if you want to attend that, please RSVP on the event page, on the Tricorder Transmissions Facebook page. You can get updates on there when we have our exact location locked in, when we have more information about who might be making appearances. We are working on some celebrity guests, so just stay tuned for all of that, and please come and have a great time. We're looking forward to putting this on and making this a yearly event.
And just to reiterate, you don't have to be one of the LGBTQ affirming members to be part of this event. You can just come there because you support us. And Will, I don't know if many people know this, but I'm a brown guy. So there is going to be some ethnic diversity there as well. And I'm just going to be happy that I get to be different and celebrate the fact that I'm different with other people who identify as different at this event. And if you come there, I will meet you and I will tell you a knock-knock joke that is Star Trek themed.
Well, I can't wait to hear that. Well, that's what I think is going to be really great about it. It's for everybody. We're not, we're specifically putting on there LGBTQ because we want people to know that it is a safe space for them, but it is for everybody. The only stipulation is if you don't want to make it a safe space, you won't be welcome. So to have an open mind and an open heart and just be ready to have a good time.
Absolutely. And with that, we just would like you to know that we are a proud member of the Tricorder Transmissions Network. We have amazing shows that include Weekly Trek, the one that you're listening to. There is the wonderful Reading Trek that Will co-hosts. There is Polytreks that I co-host with Barry DeFord, and a bunch of other shows that you can listen to and check out on the tricordertransmissions.com. That's our official channel. You can also check us out on the various iTunes channels that we have going on, and you can just talk to us on Twitter and we'll lead you into some of the other podcasts if you're interested. Where can people find you on social media, Will?
Yes, you can find me on Facebook in the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas Facebook group. I am very active in there, and please drop me a line. Love to have a conversation with you about Star Trek and many other things. You can find me on Twitter at William G. Conlin. I'm not quite as active on there, but you can still get a hold of me that way. How about you, Shashank?
I am not currently on Facebook, but there is a Polytreks Facebook page. You can find that using POLITREKS. You can use that exact same word and add an @ in front of it, and you can find us on Twitter with that. And personally, you can find me on Twitter on @Shashank Avvaru. That's SHASHANK AVVARU. You are a soldier for writing that down and following that lead. Good job.
All right, well, with that, I think we're wrapping up this week's news. Please stay tuned for next week's episode, where we're going to have another 2 hosts from the podcast network. They're going to give you the Star Trek news of the week. Until then, live long and prosper.
And we will beat that Kobayashi Maru.